From childhood to adulthood, many have been indoctrinated and taught to think that people already know Allah, the creator of beings, since they were fetuses in their mother's womb. Many too have claimed that they know who their God is, yet it has become human nature to want to know exactly of their origin and who their actual creator is, leaving many questioning and doubting their own existence and belief. But how is it possible for a fetus that is not yet perfect in the process of creation to have a dialogue with God in its mother's stomach? Isn't a person able to know something because of a learning process and not something that suddenly comes into one's consciousness? It may seem contradictory at first, but this was done purposely for the true believers. Those who truly seek for answers will and can eventually understand the meaning and essence behind every metaphorical verses in the Quran. If there is a misunderstanding of these verses, it is not the words of Allah, but the fault lies in understanding and interpretation of humans. People have not searched hard enough for the truth. Being a believer is something that should not be forced or coerced into, let alone be passed on to just anyone, because faith is a gift from God. As stated, no soul can believe except by God's leave, which is the result of a spiritual learning process, not something that can just be passed on. Just like the Prophet Muhammad, only through searching did he get God's leave. God found Muhammad in a state of confusion and astray. For 40 years he has lived on a path opposite of the path of God. So for anyone that is not willing to study or search for the true meaning of God's revelation, then without a doubt will they live a life of denial and confusion, such as what is happening in the present, where the majority will claim to be believers yet still seek other sources of legislation besides from the Quran. Even Abu Bakr was said to be a believer after he had pledged his faith. So a person's faith begins with his willingness to identify as a servant who obeys and submits to no one but God. This testimony pledge is very important, as it is the beginning of a human being reborn with a new consciousness and belief than before, which would not be possible for a fetus in the womb, which would mean that they would have to be deeply conscious and a sound comprehension of God's revelations, and not based on doctrines and traditions. Deen al-Islam clearly instructs us to not follow any other types of teachings that have no foundations of the truth. Without this understanding, human life would become a life that is worse than animals. A life that relies on materialistic and physical satisfaction. A life that pits, burns, and destroys one against another.